For Around SoCo, I'm David Steven, and I'm here with Lonnie Shelton. And Mr. Shelton, can you tell me a little bit about who you are and why you came to Trinidad?
Okay, Lonnie Shelton and my wife is Marilyn. We actually bought some property up here. I've vacationed throughout a lot of Colorado for over 40 years. Okay, but there come a time when we were looking at where would be a place that we might could buy property that someday, eventually, maybe could even be a retirement home for us. And you know what? I was doing some work in this area, fell in love with the area, and I'll tell you what, all the combination, the puzzle pieces just come together. So that's how we ended up here.
Tell us a little bit about yourself and where you live.
Okay, for a number of years, married, of course, had 3 kids, 3 daughters, and the way I figured God knew I didn't know how to take care of little boys, couldn't change a diaper on a little boy or something. But 3 daughters, they're both married now, or all 3 of them are married now. And we live in Pampa, Texas, which is not far from Amarillo. So that's been home for us for a lot of years. And in the last years, we've been able to spend more and more time up here. And this area has been a great area for us. We've loved the area. We've fallen in love with the community itself, the area. You can't get a better combination. You really can't.
Other than a retirement place, what brought you to Trinidad, and tell us a little bit about the project that you hope you work on in the future?
Okay, well, let me tell you, 2 years ago, I have a passion for old cars, okay? And I really do. Maybe it's more an addiction than a passion, okay? But I have a passion for old cars, and I was asked to bring some cars to a car show that was here. Now, I brought a couple of cars up here, some pretty cool stuff. You know, I've got some cars I've had for 35 years, some pretty cool stuff. And we brought those cars up here, and we were part of a Santa Fe Trail Days that was up here. And while we were in the middle of that car show, there's a gentleman come walking by to me, and I didn't know who he was, and he walked up to me and he said, "Man, cool car." I think that was the exact words, "cool car." I said, "Well, thank you, thank you." He says, "That's yours?" I said, "Yeah, yeah." He said, "Man," he said, "I've got a 57 Chevy too." I said, "Oh, cool, cool." He said, "That's a nice car there too." I said, "Well, that's mine also." He said, "You got 2 cars?" I said, "No, I've got about 70 cars." He said, "So 70 cars?" So that started a conversation. When you get around car people, you're going to learn something someday. Is all you got to do is start the conversation, and it goes crazy. It goes crazy. You enjoy visiting with each other and sharing about, Jay has some nice cars, Mr. Chimino, I have some nice cars, and that's where we begin to connect.
Tell us a little bit about the Babe Ruth car.
Okay, Babe Ruth car, what a unique car. Babe Ruth, he left baseball in 1935. Okay, he had cancer. Okay, but Babe Ruth still had an unbelievable passion for 2 things in his life. He had a passion for baseball and for kids. Now, as World War II began to wind down, Ford began to really focus on all the little towns across the United States, and the way they focused on them was to sponsor Little League baseball teams all across the United States. By 1946, they were sponsoring over 3,600 Little League baseball teams. Phenomenal, phenomenal. Okay, but their spokesman was the Bambino. And what happened there is Ford provided a vehicle. They gave him a 1948 Lincoln Continental to travel around the country and talk to people, talk to kids, okay, and encourage them to play baseball. Now, Babe Ruth, when he died in 1948, he died on August 16th, 1948, that car was sold by his wife, Claire, to a museum. And then it spent the next 64 years in museums all across the United States. And I got an opportunity to buy the car, and I said, no more museums. I want people to see the car. All right. Then I've developed a real passion for sharing about who really Babe Ruth was. So it's a wonderful car. It's a beautiful car, been very well maintained. It looks like a brand new 48 Lincoln, honestly. It sure does.
And tell us a little bit about a possible future project that you're going to be involved in, involving the car in Trinidad, Colorado.
All right. That is a multifaceted project because it started out of that first meeting that Jay and I had. Jay's a very visionary individual. Yeah, he loves old cars, but Jay had a vision somewhat like I had. Someday I'd like to be involved in a car museum. Okay? Jay and I talked about that the first evening that we met. And we talked about that. And then that's where this whole project is developed. Now, the Puerto de Colorado is a result of all our discussions through the year about that. And it's developed into, basically we have drawings on the board now for the car museums, 27,000 square foot facility for nothing but old cars. And then there's multifaceted, not only old car museum, but there's hotels, there's restaurants, there's a sporting goods store, there's swimming facilities, there's an outdoor recreational area, kids to learn to play baseball camps, that's sort of the stuff. So it's a multifaceted location. So this is all developed out of two old guys just getting together and starting talking about old cars. So that's what it's about.
Now that you've told everyone about your interest in Trinidad, why you and your wife came here in the first place, can you tell our listeners and our viewers out there why you wanted to speak at a city council meeting recently?
Okay, yeah. You know what? I'm a person that when I see something that needs to be addressed, I don't hesitate to do that. Okay. Now I'm not a person that wants to create enemies either. You know, I don't have any enemies. Thank goodness, I don't have any enemies. But what I saw going on, we came into town that evening to get some building supplies. We've been working on our little cabin and have a meal that evening. And everywhere I went, all I could hear was people talking about two things going on in this community. One, the problems going on in the school system, and number two, the issue concerning marijuana. Okay. When I heard about that, I thought, you know, I need to in some way address that. Okay. Well, our plans were to be here for only 3 days, and I thought, you know what, if I can get a hold of somebody, I found out there was going to be this public sitting at the city council meeting on Tuesday. If I can get a hold of somebody, maybe I can write a letter, and that letter can be written and give to the mayor's office or the city council office or whatever, and they could read that. Okay. I continued just thinking about it. Okay, I'm going to tell you what, when I get my mind set on something, it normally keeps building. It keeps building. It keeps building. And I thought, you know what? It's not somebody else's job to share what I think about the situation. It's my job. So I stayed here. My wife went on back home. I stayed here, and I wanted to go to that meeting last night to share from an outsider's viewpoint. You know, sometimes you can be too close to the forest to even see the trees. And I wanted to share from an outsider's viewpoint. Now, I have a vested interest in the community, yes, because I'd like to see this development go ahead and take place. But more than that, not so much that, it's because I love the area. We've been acquainted with people here for 9 years. You get to meet a lot of great people in 9 years. And so that was my reason for going to the meeting there last night. It really was.
And then tell us about what you wanted. You didn't get a chance to tell the council everything you wanted to talk about, so tell us.
Okay, let me tell you what. I thought if I could share with the council from an outsider's view that I could take a few moments of their time and hopefully gain their attention to share with them that has the drug issue been a positive issue in this community in the past? Because I know what the answer would be there. It's not a positive issue anywhere. It's not a positive issue. It does nothing but create chaos in a community. Okay, so why should we put ourselves in a position to make it to where drugs were even more available? Okay, I wanted them to see that and understand that that doesn't work that way. It does not work that way. And for me to share from my perspective as an outsider, I thought maybe I can bring some civility between. There's a lot of conflict between groups sometimes. There are, even to the point that some people have a little bit of right in their theories. Some people over here have a little bit of right in their theories, but they get so contrary to one another, they don't ever set time to bring it together. Well, I thought maybe I could do that. Maybe I could form enough input into what they were talking about to bring some civility between them and help them understand. But then I learned some things about last night that I don't believe that what's going on here is a result of people trying to help other people with medicinal marijuana. It's not that at all. It's not that at all. It's way beyond that. It's way beyond that. The issue of turning over a community to drugs, particularly young people, that's my great concern. Okay, that's my great concern. We have just put a stamp of approval to young kids in this area that drugs are okay now. Because we as adults, we're supposed to be smart enough to discern the differences between right and wrong. And we just put a stamp of approval. We said, drugs are okay now. Now, for years and years and years and years and more years, we have done nothing but do everything we can do to fight drugs, to try to remove them from our country. Now, all of a sudden, overnight, they can be a good thing? I don't think so. I don't think so. Part of the argument was it's going to bring jobs to the community. It's going to do something to increase the tax base in the community. And it's a good medicine. Hey, I've got news for you. It's not any of those three things. It's not any of those three things. And it's easy to break those theories apart if you just take the time to think through it. And that's what I was wanting to try to do last night, is present that in a nutshell, where the jobs deal is not the answer. The jobs deal is what we're trying to do. We're trying to do some things in the community that actually make jobs for people that have a sustainable income. And everything that we were wanting to do in the community and still want to do is not based on drugs. It's based on family-friendly things. Bring people together, places where mom and dad can enjoy the day out there, the kids can enjoy the day, things are going on like that. So you've got to deal with the job side of it. They're trying to tell us that marijuana is going to bring jobs in our community. I got news for you. It's not the kind of jobs you want. It's not the kind of jobs we want. What's it going to do to the medicine side of it? Folks, this ain't about the medicine side of it. They don't invest the kind of money in developing this push to help a few people with medicine. If it's about medicine, why don't we do it this way? If it's truly about medicine, why don't we handle marijuana, if it has redeemable medical abilities, why don't we do it like this? You go to a doctor, the doctor says marijuana may help you in this particular case with issues you may have. You get a prescription, you get that prescription, you go to a pharmacy and you get your drugs. Why do we need a storefront out here to sell it on the street? Why do we need that? That has no merit in my books, friends. No merit in my books at all. So then what do you got to look at? What's the last thing? The tax base. They're saying that if we provide medicinal marijuana, it's going to increase the tax base. How many people in the city of Trinidad are there? There's about 9,000. Okay. How many of those 9,000 people need medicinal marijuana? Well, I heard topics that people even said last night, maybe a dozen. Okay. So if a dozen people are provided with medical marijuana, that's going to do something for the tax base in the community. Well, they're going to charge a lot of money for it if it's going to do that. All those things, they're a fallacy. They're a fallacy. So I see through that fallacy, and I think there's other folks in the community that see through the fallacy. This community years ago was called the City of Champions. Okay? And what I am a part of, and some other people are a part of, is trying to revive that image of being the City of Champions. Okay. Are we going to do it if we make this a pot capital? I got news for you. If that's where you think this city's going to go to become the City of Champions, you're going down the wrong path. It ain't going to happen. And you know that. I know that. And there's a lot of other people know that. But I think there's some folks in this community that are looking at this area as a reservoir for maybe getting drugs to other places. There's a lot of issues going on here. And again, I'm an outsider, okay? But I'm not a stupid outsider. Okay. So my vision for going to that meeting last night was this. Maybe I can bring two sides together, because I am an outsider, bring them together and say, folks, we got to work through this. We got to get it done, because the community is the one that suffers if we keep this up. So that was my logic. It honestly was.
So, Mr. Shelton, I thank you for your time today.
Hey, it's been a pleasure. You betcha. Thank you so much.
Hope we can talk about the Babe Ruth car a little bit more.
Hey, let's make that happen, because we're gonna get that other stuff done. We're gonna get that Babe Ruth car here. Trinidad will be the home of Babe Ruth's car. Sure will.
Thank you, Mr. Shelton.
You betcha.
For Around SoCo, I'm Dave Sanastino.